So once again, welcome to the Unshakable Foundation meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. This is a main share meeting, and today it's with great pleasure and lots of gratitude that we welcome Reggie W, who's come to share on the topic of relapse for up to 40 minutes, after which we'll open up for the Q&A portion of the meeting. With that, Reggie, it's over to you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. My name's Reggie White. I'm a alcoholic and an ex-problem smoker. I smoked a whole lot of cocaine, and that got me up in these rooms. I want to thank Lee Young, rather, for inviting me out. And he really made what he doesn't know is a very dangerous move, right? What he did is he asked me to pick a subject. See, and I normally like to go to meetings, and I like to just tell my story because what I do is I always try to stay in God's will because I am that relapser. I'm not just a relapser, I'm a serial relapser. And I was out there for 16 years. And after all that time out there with my experiences and coming back, I try to stay out of Reggie's will and in God's will. And when we get into subjects like this, talking about relapse or anything else, when I start talking about subjects, you start hearing my opinions. And so what you're going to hear a lot of is my opinion. So that's bad news. But I got good news for you, too. Bill put it best. He said, an alcoholic, an ex-problem drinker who has found this solution and is properly armed with facts about himself can generally win the confidence of an alcoholic within hours. And see, I'm an ex, and I found this solution, and I'm an ex-problem drinker and smoker. And I'm armed with a lot of facts about myself, and life is best understood looking back. Live forward, but understood looking back. So what I'm going to do is I'm not only going to tell you guys about how basically what I believe happened as to where I relapsed in the first place. For those of you who never relapsed, see, I was a guy who came here on February 7th of 1987, and I stayed here for quite a while. And to me, life was so good, sober, I could not imagine why anybody would ever relapse. That thought never crossed my mind. I used to think, why would anybody want a life? Life doesn't get any better than this. Why would somebody want to do something different? So I'm going to tell you what happened in my mind, what happened, why I relapsed. Then I'm going to tell you about what happened. Why it was so hard to get back to you. Because it was a real hard time getting back to you guys, right? And I came to you in February of 1987, and life got really good really fast, right? And I built a family. I had a job. I built a life like we're supposed to do in AA. And some of you know my story, but I'm going to assume there's some new friends here. And so welcome to the Fellowship of Cocaine Anonymous. I assure you the program works, and it works well. So I'll give you just a really brief outline. I built a family, had a wife, a stepson, had my own daughter, and my daughter got sick, and it was an incident, a medical malpractice where the doctors gave her medication that was not supposed to be given to a child that age, and my daughter and then they made a money decision, and my daughter died because they felt like she was worth. It was more dangerous for her to live than to die as far as money wise against the hospital. And when they took my daughter, I kind of checked out, right? Me and my wife, who was also in fellowship. What I always like to tell people is a couple of things. First of all, don't let the life that AA gave you get in the way of your AA life, because that's what happened with me. I had gotten sober, and I got so successful, and I had moved away from everybody that I knew, and I was off by myself, and I'm working, and I'm making money, and I stopped praying. I stopped working the steps. I stopped the maintenance steps 10, 11. Matter of fact, that's a lie. I'm already lying. I never did 10, 11, and 12, 10 and 11. I did step 12, but I skipped steps 10 and 11. Because I certainly didn't want to do that meditation thing. I saw no use in that. Who wants to go floating along all the time? And I don't need to do that. And basically I skipped step 6 and 7, and I skipped 10 and 11, right? And This is a 12-step program, not an 8-step program, and so even though I was still successful and life was going real good, I was no longer doing the things in Alcoholics Anonymous that had got me all the things Alcoholics Anonymous had got me, or Cocaine Anonymous had got me. Excuse me, I forgot what fellowship I'm in. And because I've been going on panels for prisons and taking panels down on Skid Row, I've been going to a lot of meetings. I've been working the steps, but never really big book workshop on it. We would do it as on an annual basis. Basically, we would do the steps like that. I was working with a sponsor and I was working with sponsees. And when I moved off, I was doing none of that. And I didn't do anything for years. I was years away. I had a sponsor in name only who I wasn't calling. And probably I could have stayed sober like that for the rest of my life. But then the trials came that Bill talked about. When my daughter died, I had nothing left in me. My feet were not trained. My feet were not trained to continue to go to meetings. My feet were not trained to call a sponsor or call anybody. My feet were not trained to come to lean into the fellowship of Cocaine Anonymous where my help was. Instead, I totally shut down. And I shut down and I'd had enough in me where I still lasted almost a year like that. I lasted 11 months before I relapsed. And when I relapsed, I went to a bar and I drank. Now, one of the other parts too, I really never believed I was an alcoholic. Somebody else in here may be thinking that same way because I smoke crack, right? And when I'm smoking crack, alcohol just doesn't even seem like anything. It seems like that's all there is smoking crack. I thought that was my problem. I never thought I had a problem drinking. I never thought I had a problem smoking weed. And because it was drinking, smoking weed, and smoking crack. Now, I knew that snorting coke was a little bit of a problem, but I didn't think that drinking and smoking weed was a problem. But when I went and relapsed, I relapsed on drinking. I went to a bar and I drank. And I only drank for 2 weeks, and it was so bad. What happened was so bad. All the things, I was throwing up, blacking out, bad behavior. And then after a couple of weeks, you know her, she came in the bar, and I did what I always do. I gave her my 4-word interview. Do you get high? She said yes, and I'm off smoking then. And I knew I couldn't do that. And I only smoked for a couple of weeks. Then it was the anniversary of my daughter's death, and I tried to commit suicide so I could see God. Now, this story sounds sad as hell, and it's way sadder than it's sounding to you guys right now. But I'm telling you this like this because when I'm letting you know that when I'm in a position of relapse, I use that as an excuse, right? People will excuse me for that. Even today, when I tell them why I relapsed, when I tell my story, I know that people say, okay, you relapsed because your daughter died. That could happen to anybody. But that's not true. We know what to do here in Cocaine Anonymous when we have tragedies like that. What we do is we get at the podium and talk. What we do is we call a sponsor or call sponsees. What we do is we get in the meetings immediately. What we do is we get in the middle of the herd so you guys can love us back to life. What we do is we lean into the fellowship. We don't lean back. And I totally leaned back and I totally shut down. So the first part of the relapse in the first place was because I totally lost my foundation. How did I lose that foundation? Because I wasn't doing anything on a daily basis. I have sponsees that come to me and they say, after we've gone through the 12 steps, right? We've gone through the steps. We finished the 9th step. And now they're like, okay, what should I be doing now? And I'm telling them you need to be doing 10, 11, and 12. And you need to be working with people. And instead, they're wanting to call me all the time and work with me. And it's so important. If I'm here in this fellowship and wanting to stay in this fellowship, it's so important to have a daily routine, something I'm doing every day. That's why we call them the maintenance steps, 10, 11, and 12, right? So I not only should be doing at meditation, which is the 11th step, I should be making sure that I'm cleaning my side of the street every day in step 10. When I spill something, when I do something wrong to Young, I need to go to Young immediately and make things right. Don't leave things spilled. When with my girlfriend or something, if anything happens, I immediately have to say something. Of course, I don't have a girlfriend right now, but my hypothetical girlfriend. But whatever the case may be, I need to clean up whatever mess I make right then and there. Whatever I do, I need to be meditating and stuff right then and there. And I'm going to get to that part. And I definitely need to be working with other people at all times. But I wasn't doing any of that stuff. So I didn't have the ability to stave off the relapse. Now, what's the difference? I saw some real differences when I first came to the program. After I relapsed, it took me 16 years to make it back. Why would it take so long, right? It's so much harder to come back to Cocaine Anonymous than it is to come here and stay here in the first. It's so much harder, and things start going, and now all of a sudden my mind starts going. For me, it was like really more on a personal basis too. When I first came to the fellowship, it was easy for me. Everything was easy for me. I had two brothers who came here in front of me. My brother Ronald came to the fellowship. He came in July of 1986. Then Ralph came in October of 1986. Then I came in February of 1987. So we were all right there together. Then my baby brother came in December of 87. So me and my three brothers were all in here together. And it was real easy for me because I would look, instead of looking at strangers and saying, I know they lying, I know they're not really sober, or I know they may be sober, but they didn't do it. They didn't go through what I went through, right? I was able to look at my brothers and say not only did they go through what I went through, they were worse than me. So it was easy when I first came to get sober and easy to believe in this thing. But coming back, my friend Clancy used to put it a little differently. He would always say that Alcoholics Anonymous is the only friendly direction. When he said, when I get here, it's the only friendly direction, the last one. Nobody else wants to see me coming. Well, when I'm coming back, once I become a serial relapser, sometimes Cocaine Anonymous is not a friendly direction, right? Because I've sat in the rooms and I've sat around, and if you're me, you've been around the people in Cocaine Anonymous long enough to hear people in Cocaine Anonymous talking. And I've heard people talk about people who relapse. Oh, there go that guy again. Oh, yeah, here he goes again. He's a newcomer again. Oh, if he really wanted this thing, he could get it. Oh, what are you going to do different this time? You know, things like that. And now my mind is going. And I'm thinking that people are saying that about me. And I'm thinking they're saying that about me and my brothers. Oh, look at, why can't he be like his brothers? If you really wanted this thing, you could get it, man. And I wanted it more than I wanted to breathe air. And it would be killing me that I couldn't get it. When I was trying to come back, I was now coming. I'm coming, and now CA is not a friendly direction either, right? And my mind is going, and what I became was a serial relapse. Because what I would do, I'm going to tell you not just stuff in the book. I'm going to tell you from my experiences, because I had a long experience, 16 years trying to get back to you guys and relapsing over and over and over again. And when I first came back, start trying to come back to you guys, that was about 5 years after my daughter died. I started trying to come back to you guys. And I wanted to go back to Never Too Early Big Book Workshop because that's where I knew people loved me, right? And that was my home group. But I wanted to come back with my pride and integrity intact because I was looking at my brothers and they had all these years, and I wanted to at least have a year before I walked back in the Never Too Early. So in my mind, what I needed to do was sneak back to Cocaine Anonymous. Well, how do you sneak back? Well, I was in meetings in West Hollywood, while all of my family was in South Central LA. I would go in the meetings late because I was too ashamed and humiliated. I was too ashamed and humiliated to raise my hand up as a newcomer. I didn't want you guys to know I was new, right? And then, and I was dominated by what you guys thought. That was one of the main things. In my mind, everything about me was all about what you guys thought of me. So now I'm trying to sneak back to meetings. So I'm going in late, so I don't raise my hand as newcomer because I'm too ashamed. I leave meetings early because I don't want to take tips because I'm too ashamed and humiliated. So now I'm at meetings, but not in meetings, and I'm not getting any of the advantages of them. And when I go to these meetings, I sit at the back of the room. I sit by myself. I try to sit. I would have a big book or whatever, and I'm trying to act like I'm really busy so that nobody talks to me. Because God forbid you guys walk up to me and ask that question that I hated so much. Oh, hi, how much time you got? I hated that question. I hated that question. Now we do have to ask people, are you new? And stuff like that. But I try to be really careful about how I talk to people when they're coming back in the room. Hey, how you doing? Are you new to this meeting? Are you a new, something like that. But I hate it when people would come up, hey, what's your name? How much time you got? Because I would look at it in my mind as if you're judging me. You're going to judge me based on how much time I say I have. And so all that stuff's running through my head as a serial relapser trying to come back in. So now I'm doing that, and then I'm starting to do the recovery home dance. I'm going in the recovery homes all the time, rehabs over and over, and I'm going to them back to back to back. My move was whenever I would be working, I'd be trying to get back to you guys, but I hated God, so I didn't want to do it with God, and I didn't want to do it with any help. I wanted to do it myself. So I would be going to meetings, not letting people talk to me or help me. And I would get out of rehab, and I started a pattern. I would go to a rehab. I'd get out of a rehab. I'd stay sober. I would go to maybe Never Too Early Big Book Workshop on Sunday. I would go to maybe one meeting a week. I'm not going to meetings, not nearly enough meetings. I'm not working with a sponsor. I'm going to a couple of meetings, and then I would get a job, and I would stop going to meetings, and then I'd relapse immediately. And I would see how long I lasted out there after relapsing, and then I go back in and again. But I said, wait a minute, how did I get sober the first time? I took the step, right? So now I started. What I did is I thought about what it said in the book, In a Vision for You. It said, though you be but one man with this book in your hand, we believe and we hope it contains all you need to begin. And I've taken a lot of people through the steps. So I said, I'll take myself through the steps. I got a book. I'll take myself through the steps and sponsor myself. So now I'm going to meetings where nobody know me. I'm sponsoring myself. I take myself through steps 1 through 4. And now I do a 4th step, find a stranger, do a 5th step. Now I'm skipping the steps 12 and 13, and I'm just relapsing over and over and over again, right? And this is going on for years. By now, I'm having all these periods of pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. I was thinking about how I have a really good family. I didn't know how great my family was till I started hearing you guys talk about how screwed up your families were, right? And my family is tremendous. My mom is the absolute best person in the world. I got 5 brothers. Four of the 6 of us are in AA, and the other 2 are fine. But we all get along, and everything is great. And we have this huge extended family with all the nieces and nephews, and we were always having like dinners and lunches and big places we were going. My family would, when they could find me, they would invite. And I would show up, and each time somebody would just say, "Oh, I got Reggie," and they would pay for me. For 16 years, I never paid one time, and every time I felt so bad. I felt like a little kid. So everything in me during all this time while I'm being a serial relapser is making me feel like less than a man, but so my family is treating me good, but I'm still thinking that things are bad with my family. And I was thinking about the mentality that goes on of being a serial relapse when I'm going in and out. What I started doing was, even when I'm coming to CA, I'm waiting for the day that I read. And that's the mentality I bring. That's why I have a lot of people that I sponsor, and I'll go for the hard cases. I don't care who it is. And I have a thing where I do not fire anybody. I don't believe in firing sponsees. I hear that going on, but I tell them, you could fire me, but I won't ever fire you. You know, I'm always here for you because I got to the point of being where absolutely nobody believed I could ever make it back to you guys. Nobody believed that. I remember I was behind my mom's when I got to be in 2009. God gave me glaucoma because I was working all the time before that, and I always pay. I'd say I was paying my own way, and I'm not hurting anybody other than myself because nobody could see. My ex-wife and my stepson, they were away. My family, my brothers, my mom, and everybody, and and I was thinking I was hurting nobody but myself. And that's the way I went about it. And I remember one day I went I was behind my mom's garage and I had a crack and I pushed it so many times that I'm trying to pull on it and it's nothing but air coming out. And I got a bottle of Cisco and it's a broken little crack pipe. And I was sitting there and all of a sudden it hit me. I said to myself, I can't do this anymore. And when I said I can't do this anymore, I didn't say I can't get loaded anymore. I was saying is I can't get sober. I can't even try to get sober. I said God won't let me get sober and God won't let me die. And I remember I gave up right then and there on that spot. And what I look at there is that was my surrender. Looking back in the rear view mirror, that was when I realized the belief came to me that I couldn't do it. Before then, I kept everything was a management tool, everything about me, because I knew the big book back and forth. I knew every page in the big book. I've been through the big book. I've been through the steps. I've taken people through them. I've gone through them. I knew everything in here, and I'm taking pieces of the big book out of context, which we'll do when we're out there like that. And I remember thinking, can't do this anymore. And I said, I give up. I'm no longer going to hide who I am. I said, this is how I'm going to have to be for the rest of my life. And when I did that, that was my form of surrender, look back in the rearview mirror. And God stepped in, and a week later, that's when he had my so-called girlfriend steal my mother's car out of the driveway. And why is that significant? Well, a mother is only as happy as their most unhappy child. And when I had become a low-bottom drunk, getting glaucoma in 2009 and becoming legally blind, my mom let me rent a room in her house. Wouldn't look at me or talk to me, but she let me rent a room. And I from that point on, from 2009 until June 24th of 2017, I terrorized my mom's house. I didn't think I was doing that, but just by me drinking and using there, it was chaos around my mom's house because my girlfriend was chaos. She never wanted, she said, don't ever let her in the house anymore. And of course, I was sneaking her in as often as I possibly could. And by that time, I got to the point where my health had totally left me. I had an enlarged prostate, undiagnosed enlarged prostate, where I couldn't control my bowel movements anymore. I had glaucoma where I was legally blind. I had audio and visual hallucinations where I was in a period of cocaine-induced psychosis because I'd never slept and I was up all the time. I knew that I was going crazy and I was telling myself that I was going crazy. And I said, I don't know if I can ever make it back from this. My mom was telling me that she never wanted to see me around her house anymore. When that car got stolen out of her driveway, my baby brother pushed the door to that bedroom and he said, you have to leave my mother's house right now. And my mom said she wanted me off her property and never to come on her property again for the rest of my life. She said she didn't have a son named Reggie anymore. And I thought that was the worst thing. June 24th, 2017. And it turned out that was the absolute best day of my life. So how did I turn it around? I didn't. God did. And thank God that God doesn't need my permission to work. Because I made one right decision that day on June 24th, 2007. I made the decision to go in that same rehab I'd been to twice in a 5-year period. I called my sponsor, Rico Cruz, and he said he had been waiting for that call, and I hadn't talked to him in years. And 2 days later, I was walking the grounds of that rehab, acting with my head down. And Rico walked up on me, and I had my head down because I hadn't looked any of the eye in years. I was just so ashamed and humiliated all the time. And he said, Reggie, pick your head up. You're a child of God. You don't have a right to walk with your head down anymore. And before I could stop myself, the word slipped out of my mouth. It said, would you please take me through the steps? And Rico and I started going through those steps. And after 90 days, and God reached down right there and right there. See, this is like Bill Wilson's light moment. And it happened for me. I don't know if it could happen for any of you. I guess it could happen for somebody else because God's not done with his miracles. Something happened to me that day. Looking back, I believe God reached down and he touched me and he changed something in me right there on the spot. All of a sudden, I no longer cared what people thought about me. That was what dominated me through that whole time that I was sitting there out there for those 16 years. All I worried about is what people thought about me. All of a sudden, I didn't care what people thought about me. I walked into that rehab thinking, oh, what are these counselors going to say? They seeing me back again because I was always most likely to stay sober. What are the people in the cafeteria going to say? What are the counselors going to say? And all of a sudden, I didn't care anymore. And I just started helping those 200 residents in that place. At 3 days sober, I started going around telling my story, telling them all of my experiences and trying to help people in there. And I didn't worry about me anymore. From that day to this day, I have not worried about me one single day. And I started going around telling my story and God's pouring grace on me. And thank God that God doesn't need my permission to work in my life because I had not I was cursing God still on a daily basis for letting my daughter be tortured and killed. And I hated God. And then I walked out of there at the 90-day mark and God still pouring grace on me. I walked in the Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. I wasn't worried about having a year anymore. All of a sudden, things just start turning around. And I started doing things. They talk about in the book, they talk about a psychic thing. Dr. Silkworth talked about you have that psychic rearrangements in your mind, right? And then the guy who was talking to Roland Hazard, I forget his right now. You guys know what I'm talking about. But he talked about how it had to be that he was trying to affect a psychic change in Roland's mind, right? And with me, the way I look at it, I say it is when I look at the world differently, the world starts to look different, act differently at me. And I started to look at the world in an entirely different way, total psychic change. And that came right when God reached down and touched me that day. And so now I'm in there at Never Too Early Big Book Workshop at less than a year. And I'm on the third step and we're on the third step prayer. And we were on our knees doing that third step prayer together. It was 250 to 300 of us. And I'm still cursing God on a daily basis. I'm doing that prayer and I had no belief that it could work. But I believe that you guys believe. And then the other thing different I did, we talk about started working the steps exactly as outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous this time. I did that fourth step and I put God on that fourth step. And that's when things really started to look different. I didn't skip step 6 and 7 this time. I did them exactly as outlined. And I didn't skip steps. I didn't skip a step. I started to build that relationship back with God because I was not trusting God and was not believing in God. I started taking those steps exactly as outlined, each one in order. Now, before that, what else happened differently? What did I do differently, though? Because there's somebody in here who's a serial relapser, and they wondering what can I do differently? What I did differently is this: on that very first day, I walked back in the Never Too Early Big Book workshop. One of my brothers, I think it was Ronald, asked this guy named Angel. Said, Angel, Reggie has glaucoma now. He can't see. He can't drive. He's legally blind now. Can you take him to a couple of meetings, just a meeting tonight? Because he can't drive for a meeting. And Angel said he asked me to go to a meeting with him that night. And I said, yes. He took me to a meeting with him that night. Then he asked me again the next night. Then he asked me again the next night. And he kept asking me, and I kept saying yes. That was another thing. I kept saying yes. And we started going to meetings, and we went to meetings from that very first day of Never Too Early. Every single night we went to a meeting up until the pandemic came, when there were no meetings to go to anymore. That man took me to a meeting every single night. And if he hadn't done that, you might have a different speaker here today. So that's something I did different. Okay, what happened differently when I got to those meetings? I told you before, what I used to do when I got to those meetings was I would sit in the corner by myself, right? And I would sit and read a book. I would go to meetings late. I would leave meetings early, and I would sit in the corner by myself, and I would discourage people from talking to me. And I hated when people would come and talk to me, especially if they're going to ask me that damn question about how much time you have, which I hated. Well, now I said that I'm going to do things differently. When I came back after 16 years, I had a level of desperation like I'd never had before, because I had experienced hell on earth. Like I said, the condition I came to you guys in, I had no physical health left. I had no mental health left. And I was totally frightened. I didn't know if I ever would lose the hallucinations. I was hearing and seeing things all the time. And it turned out those went away while I was in rehab. Thank God I did 90 days in a rehab. It was time enough for all the hallucinations to go away and for me to get together physically and mentally. But now I'm at these meetings, right? And I started to go to meetings differently than I did when I was doing it by myself and when I was just doing this. As soon as I would get into a meeting, I would go in, and instead of waiting for you to come to me and say something to me or me sitting by myself, I went immediately to everybody in that meeting, and I started shaking their hand and introducing myself to them. Especially whoever I saw where it was a crowd of people, I would go over, hi, my name's Reggie. I'm an alcoholic. I'm an addict. I'm Reggie White. I'm an addict. And I would go up to every single person and I would shake their hand. And I would do something else. I would bring some cookies, or I would bring donuts, or I would bring pizza, or I would take on a commitment. I made myself a commitment. I didn't wait for it to ask them for a commitment. I made a commitment in every single meeting. And this was out of sheer desperation. And when I came back here, I said that I'm not going to do this the same way I did it before. I'm going to do everything the exact opposite of how I did it before. Before, I was hiding in meetings. I was hiding in Cocaine Anonymous. Now I started shaking everybody's hand as soon as I went in and introducing myself. And things just started to be different. Life just started to be different. I started to then, as we were working these steps, how did things change? Because I had a whole big gulf between me and God, right? One of the bigger problems, I'm trying to keep track of time, is I didn't have a relationship with God. I was trying to do this by myself, and I was trying to bring myself back to the fellowship. So how did I rebuild that relationship with God? That was the other big thing, because I started doing things differently in meetings, which was huge, because I can't do this by myself, but I also can't do it without God. And so when I put God on that fourth step, things started to look different. I realized God wasn't the one that gave my little girl the bad medication. That was the doctors at Children's Hospital. I realized God wasn't the one who made the decision for my daughter to die. That was the doctors at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. I've been pissed because I prayed for God to take my life and save my daughter. But then I realized God doesn't work for me. I work for God, and then I've been so pissed because I've only been able to have my daughter for 4.5 years. And the last 4 months of her life was total agony. All she could, the last memories that she had were total agony of being eaten alive from the inside and then dying a horrible death. I was so pissed off at God about that. And I had to change something. And I just started to look at the world. And I realized, and when I look at the world differently, it looks back differently. And the way I prefer to look at God is, I said, God held Angela Marie White in his arms before he put her on this earth. And he told her she was going to be tortured for 4 months and die a horrible death. So what he was going to do was give her a man that's going to love her every single day of her life. Give her to the best father in the world. He gave her to me. And I never thought I could have a child. And me and that girl were so tight. We were so close. It was unnatural. And the way I prefer to look at it is this, that God, not that God only let me have my baby for 4.5 years, but that he allowed me to be a father for 4.5 years, the best 4.5 years of my life. And once I started looking at the world differently, looking at it with gratitude, every single day of my sobriety since I've come back, I've had to look at this way differently, because I believe that when I'm coming back as a serial relapser, things are way different. I've talked to other people I always talk to the people who relapsed and were out for years and years and years, and then they had years of sobriety and then were out for years and coming back. And one of the things we have in common is, I know somebody was telling me, I'm coming up on my 1 year. They just told me this last week. And she said, Reggie, I'm coming up on my 1 year anniversary, and so why don't I feel good? And I told her, I remember every anniversary that I come up on. It's different when I'm first here. It's like a huge celebration. And some of the times when I'm coming back, guys, we got to realize how people are when they're those serial relapses. I feel ashamed that I'm only celebrating a year. And so what I have to do is I always have to put myself in the mindset of having gratitude for every single thing that I have. That's the way that I try to live my life now. And what I've had to do, the other thing that I've had to do, because and single body person, and I never want to go back to that place. I never will. That is literally hell on earth when everybody's given up on me. I've given up on me. My mom has told me that she never ever wants to see me on her property. I remember when I came back and I got out of that rehab after 90 days. And I remember calling my mom and saying, can I come down and pick up my clothes? I told her I'd put a bunch of clothes in a tub and I put them in your garage. Can I come back and get them? Because it has my coats and stuff like that in them. And my mother panicked. She panicked. She said, oh, no, you can't come on my property. She said, I'll have your niece and nephew bring your clothes. And then I remember a few months later, it was Thanksgiving. And she sent word to my brother Ralph. She said, tell Reggie that he can come home. And that was when the door cracked just a little bit open. And my mom, see, if there are any new people in here, I need you to understand, if you're a serial relapser like I am, that we are a tornado in the lives of people that love us so much. My mom was the last one to give up on me, and it tore her apart just to watch me going down the way I went down, and she wouldn't give up on me. And when she finally gave up on me, it was so hard for her to believe that I made it back. It was so hard. It took her 4 years of me being back before she actually believed I was all the way back. And all that time, like I could go visit her house. It didn't take that long for me to be able to go there, but she didn't give me a key. It took about 2 or 3 years before she gave me a key. All of us sons have a key to her. And it took years before she gave me a key. And I remember I would go out to take her trash out. When I go out in the back to take she would stick her head out the door because I always used to sneak back there behind the garage and get loaded. And I would have to come back in and I would just tell her, Mom, I'm not that guy. And we have to be patient with her. And then after 4 years, she wrote in my birthday card, "You're the center of my universe." Center of my universe. My mom is 95 years old. She turned 95 on February 1st. Right now, my mom and I are like best friends. What are the benefits? I have a couple of minutes left. Oh, it's time. Okay, just one quick thing. What are the benefits of me making it back to this fella? 7 months after I got back, my ex-wife, she also came back and she celebrated 7 years this year that she's been back. And now she's been taking my mom everywhere. And her and my mom are like best buddies. And they go to plays. My mom, and I have been given so much by you guys. I'm sorry. I never intend to go over. Relapse, that's one of the things that's real close. I really worry about our friends that are relapsing and that are out there. Anyway, Young, thank you so much for inviting me out. My name's Reggie White. I'm an addict. Thank you for allowing me.
Hi, Michael, addict. Thank you very much, Reggie, for your share. It was really emotional, really honest, and really powerful. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. So my question is, I was sort of getting this gist that for like and yeah, I hope it's not too personal. I was sort of getting this gist for a long time, like within your journey, that you hated God and like you almost blamed God as such. And I was just wondering, like, was there a specific turning point where you just completely surrendered to God and fell in love, or was it over a process of time, or what? I was almost going to ask you how clean you are, but I didn't want to push me luck. So yeah, my question is, when did you stop hating God, and and what was it that made you start loving him? And thank you again. Cheers.
Thank you. And that's a really excellent question. And I've been back since June 24th, 2017. It'll be 8 years back on that date. But I literally did hate God. I blamed God for my daughter. I was thinking, what kind of God would allow her to be tortured like that and then killed? And I hated God. That's what kept me out there for so long. And when did it start back? It started when I did that 4-step, when I put God on the 4-step. And I realized that God wasn't the one who did those things, but that didn't get me back into a spiritual experience it was a process which continued in 6 and 7 when I turned my defects, really turned them over to God. And see, that's me rebuilding that relationship with God, because now I'm trusting God. And I just gave him the God, and I decided when I came back, I said, I'm going to do everything exactly the way we're supposed to do it. And I gave him the God, and I took my hands out the pot. God didn't need me helping cook. I got out the way. But then what really happened is in the 8th and 9th step, because when I wrote up my 8th step, and I have to do forgiveness, and I have to do an amends list of, the people I do amends to. And now I'm terrified to go do these amends, because especially with the people I love, like my mom, my ex-wife, my brothers, the people closest to me, I'm terrified. And so when I did those amends, it was like a total leap of faith. And that's when I started seeing God. And that's when I started feeling the presence of God, when I did those.
Thank you, Michael, for your question. Andrew, would you like to come in?
Good evening. Good afternoon, beautiful souls all. Brother Reggie, you have my love. So much pain. My question, I was reading a bit of scripture the other day, and it said we cannot serve two masters. I had 7 of them. They call them the grosser handicaps. You talked quite a bit about pride and what people thought of you and all the pain this caused you. My question to you now is this new inner shift. Are you truly free of what you think others believe of you?
Thank you, Andrew. And as much as humanly possible. I don't believe, well, for me, it's not possible to be totally free. I think I'm about as free as anybody can get. I don't worry about it because I don't worry about me. On a daily basis, that's why I have a meeting list that I send out, right? On a daily basis. I've been doing this since the start of the pandemic. I send out meetings on WhatsApp to everybody because I have to have something every single day that I am doing for other people. And what I do is I don't worry about me. My philosophy is it's my job to help God's kids. And while I'm busy doing that, God can sneak in behind my back when I'm not looking at it. He can do stuff in my life. And that's just the way I do it. And I really don't worry. But for the very most part, I don't worry about what people say or think about me. It's just none of my business.
Thank you, Andrew, for your question. We've got about 7 hands up left and not loads of time, so we're going to drop question time down to a minute because we'd really love to get everyone in. Ella, would you like to come in?
Thanks, Isaac. Good evening, guys. I'm Ella and I'm a grateful recovered addict. Reggie, thank you so much for your share. It was amazing to hear you. My question is a pretty quick one. So the question is, what advice do you give to newcomers when they are put off by the word God? Thank you.
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that again, please.
Sorry, my dog was barking. What advice do you give to newcomers when they are put off by the word God?
Go to page 46 and 47 in the big book and just read that part where it says, only in that part of the big book, it talks about, that's in We Agnostics, and it talks about all we ask you to do is be willing to believe in a power greater than yourself. So we're not going to try to push anything on you about God. That's up to you. But just know, and when I say be willing to believe that there's a power greater than you, just know that you're not that power. That's it. As long as I know that there's something out there and it's not me. And tap into that. Make it whatever you want it to be. It's up to you. All right.
Thanks, Ella. Dave, over to you.
Hi, Dave, addict, alcoholic. Reggie, thank you very much for that chair. It was absolutely powerful and amazing. The question I had was when you came back in and you developed that connection with God again after you'd done your step 4 and you developed that connection, what do you do today to maintain that connection and help grow on that connection that you have with God? Thank you.
Thank you. The question. I had some issues, of course, which we all do. We all would after 16 years out there. And I started doing a prayer the day that I went into that rehab, the day that God touched me when I went in that rehab. Thank you, God, for removing my obsession with drugs, alcohol, cigarettes. And there was a person in there also that I had an issue with, an ex-girlfriend that I had to, and I said that prayer matter of fact, I've said that prayer every single morning, along with the 3rd step prayer and the 7th step prayer, from then until today. And then what I try to do, because I'm always going to take it back. I'm always going to take my will back because I'm human, right? So what I try to do is be conscious of. That's why I said that at the beginning. I don't do subjects because the dangerous part is Reggie's will. You know, I really try to stay in God's will as much as I possibly can. And that's all I can do the best.
Thanks, Dave, for your question. Edward, would you like to ask a question?
Hi, Reggie. That was a really it touched deep with me, especially the part when you said you were worried about what other people thought of you all the time, and you said you'd go to dinners or whatever's and they'd pay for you, and it's I deal with that a lot. And one of the things they say that I because I'm on step 4, I just started again, but it's even though you had a problem drinking, you've lived I've lived my life drunk and using drugs. Now I'm trying to learn how to live sober. And so I'm unemployed right now, and I just wonder how you dealt with um, the worries of finances and stuff like that. And they say put it in God's hands, but I'm like, I don't know what that means. Someone last night said a blue chip doesn't pay the rent. It's great, but that's it.
That's true. That's an excellent question, and that's very true. Now, when I came out of rehab, I moved into a room. I was renting a room because I'm I'm legally blind, so I'm on Social Security disability. I've never ever worried about I've never worried about money. Let me ask you the question that I'm asking you to ask yourself is, am I okay today? Do I have a roof over my head? Do I have food that I can eat today? Just today, not tomorrow. Do I have a roof? Do I have food? Am I okay? Is my health okay? And if I can answer all of those saying yes, then I have nothing else to worry about. I don't worry about tomorrow. And God, even when my bank account would get low or overdrawn or whatever, something would happen. And I guess it's just a matter of faith. That's where faith comes in. And that's the best that I can tell you. But I've never worried about me.
Thank you for your question. Keelan, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Keelan, alcoholic. Thanks very much, Reggie, for your share. I got a lot out of it 'cause it's something that's very close to my heart also. I managed 4 years sober, and then picked up after the 4 years, after re-establishing connections with family, trust with family, and stuff like that. And it was very much like throwing a hand grenade at my family, and it's took a long time to start building up those connections back with them. So and re-establish trust as well, because for a long time I could tell by the tone of the voice, of the mannerisms, that they were sort of second guessing everything that I was saying. So really the question is, what did it take, or how long did it take for you to be able to forgive yourself?
That's an excellent question. And I think that I forgave myself. Here's the thing. And when I really think about it, I didn't worry about me. Again, that's where it comes in, where I don't worry about me. So I didn't worry about forgiving myself. What I more so concern myself with is doing right by the people that I did wrong. So just take the steps, get to the step where I now can fix relations with everybody else, and don't worry about you, man. God has got you. God has got you. Trust me when I tell you that. So forgive yourself now, because if you don't, and forgive other people that have done stuff to you. When you forgive them, you can forgive yourself, and everything will be okay.
Thank you, Keelan, for your question. Kevin, you're up next.
Thanks. Thank you. My name is Kevin. I'm an alcoholic, and Reggie, it was amazing listening to you. I identified with so much of what you said. I was sober for 3 years, and I went back out. It took me 10 years to get back in the room again, On the 12th of April, just last year, I lost my son, and I've been really angry with God for a long time, and I think we're getting back to some sort of type of relationship. My thing is still that I suppose I'm I'm struggling a bit with the guilt of, screwing around for 10 years there, and that time that I could have been a better example for my son, that time that I probably, that I feel bad about wasting, and then why do I get a chance now? And he, he had to leave.
And there's going to be a lot of shame and guilt. And what I have to do with that, what I had to do with that is I had to change my perspective on things. For starters, I have to always have gratitude, be grateful for the time you have with your son. Don't think about what you did bad since your son was gone. Think about how good it was to have your son. Be grateful for the time. I'm grateful for the time I have with my daughter now, and that overrides all that. And just worry about what I can do good for people today. Can't change anything that happened in the past. So now all it is about being the best person I can to God's kids today.
Thank you, Kevin, for your question. And finally, we have Sunny. Would you like to come in?
Thank you, Isaac. Thank you, Reggie. That was an amazing share. With you all the way. Serial relapser too, but not today. Following the 12-step program as best as possible. I've dealt with various bereavements too along the way in recovery. Found it difficult, and blaming God for things that have happened. But generally speaking, having the trust and faith to get through. Currently I'm kind of dealing with relationships. You talked about extended families and stuff. How do you deal with people that, I'm in recovery, but other people know that I'm in recovery. However, I'm trying not to control what they think or say or do, but I do get abuse occasionally, but I try not to get in the ring and I try to keep my distance. How do you kind of deal with people, the norms that are out there that can't quite see my way of life?
I have to be patient because I brought that on. I'm responsible for that. We make decisions based on self that later come back to hurt. And so now when it's coming back to hurt me, what I have to do is I have to forgive. And I have to forgive immediately. Just like if I do it on a 10-step, if I hurt somebody that I need to go back and make amends, then I need to immediately forgive them. Because they don't know any better. And all they're doing is doing it based on what I did to them before. And so all I could do is to say, I'm not that guy.